In the 3.0 update, Wild Riders and Stag Knights all got significant mass buffs. Today we're going to be taking a look at a 2v2 replay from the XMT Legends, Falcon and Robane. They're on the land battle ladder, taking on a couple of randoms, but the builds are pretty solid overall, and I want to keep this focus on the Stag Knights primarily. But we are going to obviously take a look at this awesome big old 2v2 replay. Again, these conclusions are based on not only this game, but other games I've watched and played myself. But this one's definitely the most interesting to show you guys, I think. Stag Knights, yeah, they got extra mass, as did Wild Riders. Definitely makes them much better. And with the changes to knockdown, they just they tend to perform much better. They don't get bogged down in infantry, hardly at all, it seems like. Maybe very high mass infantry, perhaps like Ironbreakers or, you know, Black Orcs or something like that, but still, yeah, very solid charge, armor piercing damage, which they've always had, physical resistance, decent armor for Wood Elves, not great, but obviously Vanguard deployment, very fast, and now heavy mass to match for the rest of their builds here. Falcon in command of the Wood Elves, he's got a couple of Dryads, some more Dryads through the center here, and then these one Vanguard on the flank. He's got some War Dancers. Dirthu's going to be leading the way as well. He's here in the back line. And then his Kislev ally, led by Robane, got Kostalton on horseback. Very interesting choice. Couple of light war sleds, some winged lancers, and lots of Kossar spears, with a couple of Streltsy as well. One, got an Ice Guard here with, oh no, it's Ulrika actually. Ulrika is the caster, and then, yeah, that's basically it for the Empire Dwarven Alliance they're up against. I see Templehof Luminarch right off the bat, Boris on foot, we've got Ungrim, front line of Dwarf Warriors with some Longbeards mixed in, a couple of Longbeards great weapons for regular Dwarf Warriors, and the Grumbling Guard as well. Lots of Empire handgunners, some Organ guns for the Dwarfs, and Slayers protecting the back line. Knights of the Blazing Sun for the Empire, as well as some grenade launcher outriders. We've got silver bullets way out on the flank there, and some pistoliers here in the near ground getting caught up by those Vanguard dervishes. So now that we've gone through all the builds, we can get things started here. Templehof is going to be teeing off on trying to shoot, looks like the Glade Captain here. Obviously has quite a few good targets to go after. Meanwhile, out here, the Pistoliers getting caught up, but that does lead to grenade launchers just destroying those dervishes. But let's keep the focus on the immediate flank attack from the Stag Knights with support of the Bear Sleds here. We're going to see a nice little quick hit and run. They pull away before that Flame Storm can really make too solid a contact and even, you know, kind of risk a little bit of friendly fire action. And here we see the Stag Knights even able to, they've got a pretty good angle there for Falcon to cut through, but able to get on those handgunners. Granted, they're just handgunners, but let's see now. We'll kind of keep the backline ones in view as they wheel around. These ones are now going to rear charge this frontline Dwarf Warrior unit, and this is going to set up a beautiful Pit of Shades for Ulrika here. She's going to get some really nice value on that cast. These other Stag Knights in the back line pressuring pretty heavily. Do get netted down by the Organ gun here. Well, not by the Organ gun, netting them, obviously. Templehof is the one that nets them. This other unit also kind of trying to maneuver up and around the flank here to get some more angles for rear charges, but the Empire player are going to very nicely block with the Knights of the Blazing Sun, get some support from their Dwarf teammate with that Longbeard immediately collapsing there. So yeah, this kind of shows the weakness of Stag Knights as well. In a way, this unit gets collapsed very quickly, and ultimately they don't have that great of defensive stats at the end of the day, so they do get killed pretty quickly there, getting ganged up on. And with the high mass Empire Knights, they're not really able to escape. Not to mention Falcon's prioritizing his micro elsewhere. He's got Dirthu trying to push through the center and pressure all this artillery that's very heavy, heavily pressuring Dirthu as well. Out on the flanks, Kislev's just kind of working against the Empire, Knights of the Blazing Sun, and trying to use their Kossar spears, Streltsy in a decent way, and they should be able to win out that flank engagement with good micro. But let's keep the focus on the Stag Knights here as they continue to cycle charge these handgunners, and obviously this is something that any light cavalry can do, right? It's kill Empire handgunners. It's not really that special at the moment, but what makes these guys special in that aspect is their ability to pull away here. And I mean, obviously we haven't seen that necessarily hugely showcased, but it will start to tell as the game wears on. And even against like these Slayers, which you might not think are high mass infantry, but they definitely have some pretty high mass. Anyway, in the front line, Kostaltin is getting killed by Ungrim Iron Fist, so let's just take a minute to appreciate that this fight is also happening. War's Dragonfire Pass holding out here. Kostaltin hits by our blood, probably not going to survive for long. Momentary lapse of micro. Ungrim, obviously a very scary combatant, just straight up kills Kostaltin. So that's a little bit of a problem for the Kislev forces. Obviously, by our blood, though, should help that out. The Great Stag Knights continuing to ping-pong around, though. They just went and finished off those Pistoliers. Now need to bail out Durthu. They're coming in for a strike on the Templehof Luminarch. Beautiful charge there, and handgunner still firing from up on high. Kislev's trying to break through with these war sleds to get on this position, but Empire and Dwarfs still managing to defend quite well for the time being, and those handgunner shots really hurting Durthu right now. But more Stag Knights coming to play. The other unit that got fairly well wrecked also came back from rout. And one nice thing about Stag Knights, due to the low model count, even with 12 unit models, you can still heal them quite a bit. Not that with Kostaltin dead, they have any way of healing them specifically, but it's definitely a benefit of them. They're a great recipient for healing, and I mean, obviously, if they had brought like a regular tree men instead of Durthu, Philcon could have been healing them this whole time. But I do respect the pick of Durthu as kind of a style pick, and just because he's awesome. Yeah, anyway. But the Stag Knights here continuing to fight against those handgunners, no problem. War Sled's also continuing to try and stay online, but this one reasonably healthy unit here is going to try and just avoid the Slayers for the time being and start to work against these Longbeards. There's a lot of armored infantry for them to still help out against, and Kossar's trying to defend against the counterattack of the Dwarves. Kind of gotten eaten up a little bit here, but like I said, Kislev able to win this mobile engagement fairly decisively. The Winged Lancers and the Streltsy and everything supporting, so yeah, here the Stag Knights going after those Longbeards, so proper engagement against some nice armor-piercing infantry. This is something that a normal light cavalry cannot do, absolutely. The Stag Knights, they're huge unit models and actually legit mass now, can definitely very much prevail in something like this. And let's watch as these unit models try and accelerate through these few dwarf and infantry. Okay, so it seems like maybe their mass is still not necessarily enough to get through stacked up Longbeards specifically, and Longbeards do have pretty good mass. Dwarf infantry in general tends to have very good mass, but due to the Longbeards' movement order, they don't actually end up stopping them up. And yeah, it's interesting. Definitely interesting to see how they actually perform in practice, because, I mean, tests on paper are one thing, but seeing how they perform in real-world battle situations, I think, is much more informative of their real performance. But, yeah, these Stag Knights also, their great leadership, obviously, being Elves, high-tier Elves at that, allows them to stay on the battlefield for quite some time. And with Kislev kind of collapsing that flank, these Stag Knights continuing to just relentlessly cycle charge this back line. And the front line also, Kislev kind of trading to a degree. I mean, they're didn't necessarily win the engagement against the Dwarven front line, but got to respect the effort here. Ulrika's going to also risk it for the biscuit, going after the pocket where Ungrim is located. But should be fairly safe at this point. I mean, these Streltsy are here fighting, really providing a little bit of armor-piercing damage. Got a couple of War Dancers in there. Perfect time to drop Bit of Shades and finish both of them off, along with all of the Dwarfs that remain, while these Stag Knights rear charge the last unit of Slayers here, so looking pretty good. And I'll definitely be showing you guys more Stag Knight games, don't you worry. And you'll just see them in general throughout the patches going forward for Wood Elves, especially if you're looking for more of a shock rush play style. I think Wood Elves probably more, since Stag Knights were released, they're probably the best they've ever been right now. And Wild Riders are kind of back to their previous light cavalry dominant position. Just in general, Wood Elves mobility took a huge upgrade on this patch, and as a result, playing them as a rush faction feels a lot better. It's a lot less clunky and a lot more rewarding and satisfying, and just works functionally a lot better because of those cavalry buffs. And I mean, the Stag Knights here, even the one that got severely damaged, was still able to come back and get some okay value. Nothing incredible by any means, but yeah, the other two, I mean, can't really Can't really fudge the numbers too much. 2221 and 2489 on damage value. 14,000, 15,000 damage dealt as well. Just very impressive performance overall. The rest of the Wood Elf army honestly just struggles pretty badly. They're largely auxiliary support units, I have to say. For Falcon, though, getting in the Dryads there initially on the flank on those Slayers to kind of help the Stag Knights with that initial flank overload really did a lot of wonders, and they also traded very cost effectively as well. For Robane here, yeah, Kostaltin getting murdered. Pretty hilarious, but Ulruka definitely some nice magic, Pit of Shades casts. The War Sleds also kind of helping to disrupt and keep that infantry line on its back foot. And then the flank fight where the Streltsy supported the Winged Lancers went very well for Robane. He was able to defeat the mobile forces of Averland no problem. Yeah, one unit of Knights of the Blazing Sun got some pretty good value, probably against that Stag Knight there in that engagement, but Tempelhof, surprisingly, despite having all those good targets, also had a lot of pressure, wasn't able to really get set and fire too much of high-value targets. Some of the Empire ranged units got some decent value, but it's interesting to kind of go with this, like, sub-commander style, right, where the Dwarfs are taking the front line and the artillery, and the Empire is taking the cavalry and the range, sort of mid-range shooting, which is definitely interesting. Yeah, I might have actually gone with Empire Artillery and Cavalry, and then just have the Dwarfs also take, like, the mid-range, so you have Thunderers rather than Handgunners. They're a little bit tankier. Wouldn't have mattered against the Stag Knights, though, and that's the beauty of it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I'll upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.